August the 1st, 2024. As you're looking at the latest from the National Hurricane Center, we now have a 70% chance of development. It's finally went from the 60 on up, and it's actually went to a 30% chance in 2 days. I think they're being conservative because of the forward speed of this storm. It's sitting right now, right there, guys. You got Haiti and Dominican Republic, and it's forecast to track through there, open water here, track back over about half of Cuba, and move back into the Gulf of Mexico is what it's looking like now. All of our tracks before this had kind of had Florida in it, but a lot of the East Coast, right? That's shifted. Now, again, this thing is moving quicker than they are anticipating the growth of it, I think, because we are here now and it's moving fast. I think by sometimes early evening, maybe just after sunset, we're going to see this storm start getting into this cone area to where they're anticipating the area to be much more conducive than it is now. But it's starting to get some low-level circulation. You can see it. We're going to take a look at those satellite images. And the latest info is saying it's a 70% chance of cyclone formation in 7 days. 2 o'clock update. That was the eastern, it says southwestern Atlantic and eastern Gulf of Mexico, AL97. They want you to watch it. A well-defined tropical wave is producing a large area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms over Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and the southeastern Bahamas. The adjacent. And what they're saying, guys, let's read it. It says 70% chance of formation in 7 days, southwestern Atlantic and the eastern Gulf of Mexico. This is the AL97. A well-defined tropical wave is producing a large area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms over Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and the southeastern Bahamas, and the adjacent waters of the southwestern Atlantic and northeastern Caribbean Sea. Development of the system could be slow to occur during the next day or so while it moves west-northwestward over portions of the Greater Antilles. However, environmental conditions are forecast to be more conducive for development after the wave passes the Greater Antilles, and a tropical depression is likely to form this weekend or early next week over the eastern Gulf near the Florida Peninsula. Interest across the Greater Antilles, the Bahamas, and Florida should continue to monitor the progress of this storm. And let me point out, guys, anywhere inside the Gulf right now, we're going to have to be very watchful. Now, earlier, we're going to check it live, but the earlier models had the Navy model bringing up through here and staying kind of in the middle of Florida and then moving up into here and moving back out. The Canadian model had it coming inside the Gulf and moving up. So we're going to look at it live together to see what has changed. Now, the importance of that with the Navy model showing it staying ashore most of the length of Florida is it will not strengthen as much. Now, Florida, you're going to get a lot of wind and rain if it does that. But if it comes back here like the center is saying now, it's going to have open water once it leaves Cuba into a very hot Gulf of Mexico. You got 85-degree plus water there. See that right here is where they've got the storm plotted to be, right where my cursor is. And what you're seeing is a change going from nighttime infrared to these images this afternoon. Starting to get wrapped up, and if you pay close attention, you can see the surface area rotation right there, right where the marker is. So it's on shore right now, but it's not going to be that way very long. And if it stays straight, it will stay along the Cuban island for about half the length of it. Now, any movement from that to the right will definitely bring it into Florida, but much stronger because it's not being blocked by the island of Cuba. Now, let's change these images, guys. It's going from overnight here with the infrared into visible images. And right there again is where the center is. My key thing about what's going to happen in the next day is where it exactly travels. Again, so it can stay north or south of Cuba or stay on shore through about half the island before it turns. If it turns north, it doesn't have a lot of resistance as it moves into the areas around southern Florida. Staying on Cuba right now is going to give Cuba a lot of rain, but that's going to slow it down somewhat. But again, the models looks like it, to me, it's going to come into the Gulf. Guys, we are up around 117 now. This is at 3:24 p.m. Central Time. That's heat index, and that it's hot. I guarantee it's hot. All of our pups are inside, which they stay most of the time. But if they go outside, they have their big room on the back deck that's also air conditioned. But if you don't have that, make sure your dogs are at least in the shade, or bring them in. Make sure they got plenty of water to stay hydrated, things like that. Look how dry the nation overall is, and the southern states of Canada. Not much moisture at all. And we've got this radiation pouring in from these geomagnetic storms continuously bombarding us, heating the atmosphere, drying it up, causing much larger high-pressure areas and these storms. Let's look up into the northwest. We've got California, Oregon, Washington, and Canada in here. It looks like we have fires in almost every one of them now. It's hot, and the brush is dry and tender, all the underbrush, and it's really like that here in the southwest, guys, because we had that pine beetle infestation after last summer's drought and lost a lot of trees. We had to cut 150 here and to keep them from falling either on the light lines or our house. Thank goodness that about 100 of those were cut by the power company. But anyway, there's a lot of dry pine trees everywhere in the southeast, guys. We need as much moisture as we can, even if we got to put up with a storm coming through, to prevent this from happening. California, northwest, I hate to show you this weather pattern where you're not getting the moisture. You've got this low-level offshore thing moving south, but everything else is moving north and northeast. Let's look at Colorado, right there in the northern sections, guys. That fire, again, with the heat of the day and the wind, it's being pushed to the east. So everything is burning in that direction, guys. So if you're in this area, make sure you're, again, following all the evacuation notices. If you're there in the comments, come in and let us know. Check on your friends and family in any of these fire areas. Make sure that they're okay. They have communications. Make sure you know where they're at. Now, at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, it came out 30 minutes ago, right there. We're starting to see our first spaghetti models. Now, the Navy has not committed with their model, and the CMC is only going out to right there. See it? Only to the very edge of the island from where it's at now. Most of them show it going across this eastern tip of Cuba, dropping back into the water, and then cutting back over the western tip of Cuba and coming up somewhere between, I'd say, Tampa Bay and over into the central Florida panhandle. Right there, you see that? Now, this is going to change, but it's important to realize that it's going to get, it looks like it's going to get back into the very warm waters in this section. This thing's going to be, we're going to start to watch this probably move closer to Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, simply because of the prevailing pattern. Remember, it's been along the East Coast, dropped down. Now it's barely touching Florida, showing a lot of interest in this area right here. Now, even though the Canadian spaghetti model doesn't go far, very much further out, possibly just to this evening, their spaghetti model does. Let's take a look at that. And showing coming into the Caribbean, we're at August the 3rd, now the 4th. It's already ashore by the 4th because it didn't encounter much of Florida. Getting much stronger according to the pressure lines as it comes back into the Atlantic. But I noticed the same thing with the last Hurricane Beryl. They weren't showing it getting very strong in this area. But very similar to this, it was getting stronger in the Atlantic. But the opposite happened because I think the models are underestimating the temperature of the water. This is going to be much stronger than what we're seeing here, regardless of where it comes in. The only thing that would be best for the upper Gulf states is that it does follow some of the other models and cut back across Florida. And that's not good for you guys in Florida unless you're in a drought area. But that would keep it back ashore and have less time to strengthen. And that would be even good for Florida itself as far as Pensacola, Orange Beach, and that area, guys. Perdido Key. See that? Because it would keep the storm to the right. I'm not wishing this on anybody. We're going to look at it much closer. I just think they're underestimating the speed. Maybe not the location, but definitely the strengthening of the storm. Once it breaks into the Gulf waters, we're going to see this change right there. And the forward movement, I mentioned that, how far I think it will be by the end of tonight. Let's just play through one more time and we'll take a look at it. It's going to start here on August the 1st today. Right there, that's August the 3rd. It's already in the Florida Straits. See that? In 2 days. And this is by noon UTC time. So that will be in the morning. And as we step it forward here, still on August the 3rd, right off the Florida coast, August the 4th now, right there south of Tampa Bay and that area of Florida. Still offshore, August the 4th, still there. Now we're into the 5th. It's ashore somewhere. I don't think the models will be very close to being exact, but we are starting to get some idea now. But by the 5th, it's ashore, according to this, in the Florida Panhandle. We'll play it forward fast one more time. Goes out, re-strengthens coming off the North Carolina coast around Hatteras, strengthening, moving back into the Atlantic. We'll update that as it gets. We'll see what happens. That way we'll know what will happen in the North Atlantic and even over into the British Isles there, because it's not showing here. Now, I think the Navy model, even though it's showing some movement up through there, they're still not certain of what's going to happen. That's why we don't see that purple line on the spaghetti models. That's always telling me they're waiting to commit. Can't blame them. They have the most to lose of anything in the U.S. right now is our U.S. Navy if they get into some trouble. So they monitor this very closely. Not much there, seeing high pressure, but it does show something move very quickly through that same area as that pressure backed off. And guys, this world's in a lot of trouble. We're going to have problems from here on out. You're looking at an article from today from warnews247.gr. We've seen it many times. And it's saying the great exodus from Ben Gurion Airport. 70,000 leave Tel Aviv. Issue of days, the conflict with Hezbollah. And that because Israel just reached out and took out Hezbollah's leader, I think it was, and one of Hamas's leaders, and they assassinated one of the leaders inside of Iran. And so right now they are stopping flights, people that were flying from around the nation towards Israel. A lot of those were going to be kind of evacuation flights. Now they've gotten so concerned about the airspace being safe in that area that those planes are turning around. But it reminds me, I can't help but think of it, of Matthew 24. And it's talking about when you see that beast stand up, or that destruction stand up where it should not in the holy place, then flee from Judea. It's I can't help but think of it when we see this type of exodus coming on now. 70,000 leave Tel Aviv, and right now there's not many planes going in and out. Let's read a little about that. They're saying that thousands of people have gathered at Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv trying to leave Israel, following the latest developments in the Middle East triggered by the murders of Hania, Shaka, and Diaf. Remember, those are leaders there. Israel has confirmed the killing of Sakar and Daf, but not of Hania. However, Iran blames Israel for the assassination of the Hamas political leader in Tehran and vowed severe retaliation. They were having a big meeting there, and he was safe in the nation that he came from, but as soon as he got out of the meeting there in Tehran, they knew where he was at and a missile hit. So it enraged the entire Middle East. And why now? Both sides have got to come to some agreement, or this is going to hell in a handbasket very quickly, guys. Many who live in Israel fear new flight cancellations, and they will not be able to return to their countries. But guys, if you were visiting Israel or you had dual citizenship, you should have been out of here last October. Just saying. They are saying that the Israel private company, Arkia, it's an appropriate name for something to save you, isn't it? announced today that it will operate additional flights from Tel Aviv to Athens and back for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, August 2nd and 3rd. This is according to the Cyprus News Agency. But guys, this thing is getting very scary over there, and that's why they're evacuating the people. We know that China and Russia back Iran simply because of Russia does not want to become part of the New World Order. And they're kind of dealing with the same group of people that want to get away from the Western sanctions and the petrodollar. Can you blame them? I can't. Sorry, can't blame them. I don't like the bombings of the citizens and things like that. But what I'm saying is that we are on the very edge of leading into the point of Matthew 24. And remember, Christ said, he said, don't. When you see that abomination of desolation stand up in the holy place, don't even go back home to get your coats. It's going to happen that quickly. And he said something else that at first it would seem, I guess, somewhat mysterious. He said, pray that your flight not be in the wintertime, remember? And why would he not be more specific in saying, well, it's going to happen in the winter, it's going to happen in the summer, whatever? It's because he didn't know. Christ didn't know. He said, only my Father, our Father in heaven, knows that day and time, that hour. And he was saying, though, pray that your flight not be in the winter. It's not winter right now. But this is getting crazy. The northern sections of Israel, along the Golan Heights up through there, they've been evacuated for quite a while because of the fear of enemy coming from the north there on top of them. And here's a still shot of a video, guys. It's on Twitter or X from Ria Novasta. I'm not going to play it. It's copyrighted, but you can see the lines there at Ben Gurion. Check that out. And it's amazing to see it happening this fast. Something else that happened. The West and NATO had promised F-series fighters from around Europe and from the West, from U.S. Well, when they got them in, I think it was yesterday, they wanted to show them off. So around Kiev, they flew a couple, kind of like you see the Blue Angels fly down in Pensacola or something like that, showing off. Well, the longest missile strike by a combat aircraft in history happened. 230 kilometers, I think it was. One of Russia's Su-27s. Bad aircraft to the bone, I'm talking about. It's hard to beat that technology, and it's been there for a long, long time. They've made improvements, but that aircraft is hard to deal with any of the F-16 type aircraft. They shot a missile, a big one, from one of the wings, traveled 230 kilometers, broke a record, and took out one of those new flights that they're showing off in Tel Aviv. And it was a signal to Kiev because they were celebrating, we have now, they were promised 100 jets. Now, if you look at the actual reports, you'll see that will take over a year to happen to get all of those into trained pilots. So I think it's fair to say that some of the F-series planes we see flying in the Ukrainian theater are more than likely manned by people or pilots from the original companies because they have, or countries, they have not had the time to adequately train a pilot with the technology that's involved now. So Russia let Ukraine and the West and NATO know. Bring what you want to in. We've always already told you we're going to take it out as soon as you do. And that's what they did. So you've got Russia, China. That should be enough to make anybody worry. And China's really pushing it because they are inwardly economically broke. The largest output they had for goods or anything, gross national output, was commercial real estate. That has collapsed on them. Now the hand of God is on them, and it's flooding everywhere. And you got a hurricane coming on top of that, dam after dam breaking. So we're in those times. And China is desperate. And another thing happened, guys, and I'll get out of here. I know it's been long-winded, but yesterday afternoon, the bonds fell. 2-year, 10-year, 20-year bonds. And what they are basically worthless money in the economic situation of the world now, because the U.S. would issue these bonds kind of like an IOU. And different countries could buy these bonds, and as the bonds got interest, the countries always until now made a little interest on their money back in the bonds. But right now there's a rapid selling off, and it crashed them big time yesterday. And because they're afraid of what's happening, and so we know that the petrodollar's days are very numbered, the U.S. dollar. But now it looks like the only thing they had left to prop up on, or we had, our government, it's not us doing it, was these bonds. That was their backup. Now the world's getting away from that, going to gold and crypto and the currencies of their nations. A lot of things are happening, guys. We're watching it. I'll get an update up, I hope by around 8 o'clock. I want to wait for the later reports on what the system that's in the Caribbean is doing now. We're watching it, guys. You watch it very carefully. Do yourself a favor, read Matthew 24. It's a heads up. Be safe.